Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being on tonight's call. It is right at 8 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. These meetings are for the purpose of encouraging and inspiring each other as women, because we all come from different walks of life. And whether our experiences were favorable or non-favorable, we've all experienced different types of things. And we want to come together to just encourage each other, because sometimes things that we've gone through have been pretty tough, but there are just basic changes and things that we go through in our life, good or bad, that we can encourage each other. Some of us have had similar situations, and we can give some words of empowerment, if you will, to help each other out. And so that's basically the whole reason for these, what I'm calling encouraging encounters, where we can just have a different lady every Monday night from 8 o'clock to 8:30 to just share from her heart about a particular topic that she has had some significant experience in, and just be able to just be real and transparent and share what happened to her to help her overcome or even get through that situation successfully. So this is all about helping each other. For those of you who don't know me, let me introduce myself. My name is Anita B. I am a wife, a mother of 3, an educator, a business owner, and kind of the list goes on and on. So juggle quite a number of things, but it's all good. All right, so I'm going to be your encouraging hostess for tonight, and my topic tonight is that of fear. And even though fear does not choose a gender, it is not gender related or gender specific, everyone experiences fear. This is something that I want to speak on tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. So what's fear? First of all, I look it up in the dictionary because that's just what I do. I'm an educator. And Webster defines it as fear is an alarm and agitation caused by expectation or realization. So in actuality, fear begins with a thought. And that thought could be triggered by a past experience, a person's words or actions, or the variables can just go on and on. But that thought turns into an emotion known as fear. Fear is a feeling that can bring about all various types of reactions. One is that of paralysis, and not physical paralysis, but fear can paralyze you from pursuing a dream. Another reaction could be that of isolation. Fear can cause you to keep you from developing relationships, meaningful relationships with other people. Fear can keep you from developing relationships, not only that, but also cause you to be very hesitant. So fear can make you apprehensive or reluctant to move forward. So in essence, it can keep you from advancing into something you were destined to do. And no one likes being fearful. No one loves feeling this particular emotion. It robs us of our confidence, our ambitions, our abilities to maximize our potential. I read a quote very recently by Marilyn Ferguson, and I thought it was just really profound. And she says, ultimately, we know deeply that on the other side of fear is freedom. I'll say that again. Ultimately, we know deeply that on the other side of fear is freedom. So no one says, woo, I was so glad I was fearful. And no one says, oh, because of my fear, I was able to accomplish great things. And no one says, I just love being fearful. It's just so motivational for me. That just sounds crazy, right? So the opposite of fear is confidence, unwavering certainty, boldness, determination. So you can use any of those words and replace fear in those sentences that I just gave. So for instance, I could say, whoo, I was so glad I was confident. Or because of my determination, I was able to accomplish great things. I love being bold. It's so motivational. You know, these trigger words, confidence, determination, boldness, unwavering certainty, they carry a weight with them, a good weight with them. When you have these type of feelings, you just feel like you can conquer the world. You feel like you're on top of the world. And it's that feeling you get when your boss praises you for a job well done, or when your spouse tells you how much they appreciate you and for what you do for the family, or when your child speaks highly of you in the presence of someone else. For those of you who are educators as well, maybe retired educators, you know that feeling when when a student says, I learned so much in your class. I really appreciate you being my teacher. I mean, those kind of feelings just build you up. Well, conversely, fear is also a weight that we don't like carrying. It's the opposite of the weight that we love to carry. Fear grips you. Instead of seeking to build you up, it seeks to tear you down. Instead of expressing words of appreciation, it seeks to devalue you. It's a shackle. Fear is a shackle. Its purpose is to make you feel inferior, hopeless, helpless. I mean, you name it. Its purpose is to imprison you so that you will buy into a lie, so that you'll believe false evidence, so that you will just choose to give up. You see, that's how it is with fear. But we have to learn how to use the opposite trigger words of fear, those words that help us to feel worthy. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Some years ago, I heard one of the leaders in my life say these words. They spelled out fear, F-E-A-R, and they said that it stands for false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real, F-E-A-R. I will never forget that. So I think of the movie, I don't know if y'all have seen this, but it's called Enemy of the State. And it's starring Will Smith. It's one of my favorite movies. And one of those movies where I just know everything that's going to happen. I can almost say the script word for word. I mean, I've seen it so many times. I really like it. But Will is a character by the name of Bobby. That's right. It's Bobby. And because he unknowingly had some information that would have jeopardized someone else's career, these culprits, these people made his life miserable. And Bobby had no clue what was going on, why they were after him. I mean, for a good portion of the movie, he was just oblivious to why these people were chasing him. So one of the things that these culprits did is they murdered his college sweetheart. And they staged it so that it looked as though Bobby had murdered her. So they put his clothes in different places in the lady's apartment to make it look as though he was there and that he'd actually murdered her. But luckily, he got to the apartment to visit her, saw that she had been murdered, and saw that his clothes indeed were scattered all around her place. So he was able to gather his things, of course, in a panic and get out of there. But what would have happened had the police found the woman and found his clothes planted there? They would have had the evidence that it was Bobby. The real people who did this would have been nowhere on the policeman's radar, nowhere on the investigator's radar. All evidence would have pointed to Bobby as the killer. So, was there evidence? Absolutely. His clothes were there. Did the evidence appear real? Beyond a shadow of a doubt, it did. Was the conclusion that he killed her true or false? Absolutely false. So at the beginning of the movie, he's this very successful lawyer. He has a wife and child. They live in a beautiful home. He's making good money. They drive expensive cars. And, they have a full-time maid. So all is going well. And one incident caused him that he was just totally unaware of, sent him running for his life for the majority of the movie. It caused him to lose support of his wife, and it caused him to lose his job. He was in constant battle with fear. So Again, I'll ask, what brings about fear? And I talked about this a little bit at the beginning. Most of the time, it's an experience that we found to be unfavorable. Maybe it was being rejected in a situation, and you're fearful of letting that happen again. Maybe it was failure in a situation, and you refuse to fail again in that circumstance. So in many cases, the thing we did may have been a good thing, but for some reason or another, it maybe just didn't turn out the way we expected. And so we fear trying anything like that again. And I am a testimony, whatever you want to call it, to that. Some years ago, we owned real estate, and we had a great residual income. It was wonderful. We had approximately about 20 tenants, and these tenants were paying on average about $700 a month. So by the time we had, paid the mortgages, we had a good surplus. So it was great. Then, as you probably know, the market crashed. So landlords, real estate agents, independent investors like we were, took a huge hit. So we were counted in that number of those people. Construction, if you recall, was also a really big hit, an industry that got hit pretty hard. And some of our tenants worked in the construction industry. So people were losing their jobs. When you don't have jobs, you can't pay your rent, and you get behind. So it was just like a constant spiral that did not seem to stop. And we had to just really take a hard look at what we needed to do because this was, part of our livelihood here. And so we actually had to just give up our rental properties. I spoke with a very well-known real estate agent in the city of Fayetteville where I live, and he grew up in the industry, knew all about real estate. And he told me, these are pretty much his words, he said in the 60-some years that he's lived, he has never seen the real estate market take that bad of a crash. Never seen anything like it before. So that let me know that in some measure or another, we were all in the same boat. I mean, people were losing money left and right, whether you were in the business for years upon years, or if you were just kind of starting like we were, but people were losing money. So as a result, I decided I'm not going to do anything else other than just be a teacher in my classroom and just forget about trying anything else. Forget it. I mean, I literally had a fear of trying anything else. The negative experiences that I had trying something new that maybe didn't quite turn out the way I wanted it to, or it didn't have long-lasting results that were favorable to me, caused me to feel that, I'm not cut out for this, or, it's just simply not for me. I just came to that conclusion. And I've been around people who are making six-figure incomes a year, and I've listened to a number of different millionaires, and I've heard their stories, and they too have experienced failure, and they too have experienced fear. But even in my listening to them, I still just had this closed mind, that I was closing all doors to trying anything other than just being an educator. And there, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But, when you have this deep feeling that you're supposed to do something beyond what you're doing, that deep feeling could never be destroyed. Even though I was just giving myself excuses and giving up, I still had that inner knowing. That's the best way I could put it, an inner knowing that there was something more for me. And one of the things I realized is that fear feeds off of excuses. Fear loves excuses. It just says, bring it on. Yeah, you're right, girl. That's right. I mean, it's just loving the excuses. So I began to make excuses why I couldn't do anything beyond being a classroom teacher. I would say, I don't have the money to do that, or I don't have the skills it takes to do all of that. This was the winner. I've tried something like that before and it did not work. So I had the evidence that it did not work. So I was just saying, I'm tired of trying stuff and it just fails. So you know what? Just forget it. I'll just be my classroom teacher and just keep it moving. So I was giving fear, a 5-course meal. I mean, it was just loving my pity party and loving my excuses. I was justifying my excuses, and fear was just getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And it restrained me from feeling like I could do anything else. So like I was saying, I still had this inner knowing that just couldn't be suppressed, that I was to do something even more, something even greater than being a classroom teacher. So remember the quote that I said earlier. Ultimately, we know that deeply that on the other side of fear is freedom. Now, I had the evidence. I mean, I could tell you this didn't work, this is how long this lasted, and that didn't work. I had the evidence, but what made it false? What made all that evidence false is that the conclusion was that it's best for me to give up. Now, that's what makes it false, because that's not the right conclusion. So despite the evidence and the things that I could point out to you that didn't work, the conclusion that I just can't do this and I'm going to give up, that's what makes all of the evidence false evidence. All right. So like I said, I've been around a number of people just even a couple of weeks ago that make a tremendous amount of money. And they too have experienced setbacks and failures and disappointments. I mean, fear does not say, I'm just going to go to this gender or this race or this culture. It goes to anybody who will give it place. So whenever I was having this nothing's going to ever happen stupor, I was just really feeding fear like it was a king. And I really very, very recently heard this quote that, by Leslie Zann, and she said, the perception of what's possible is on the other side of fear. The perception of what's possible is on the other side of fear. And I just love that. I've heard actually one of these 6-figure year income individuals say, I get fearful whenever I'm getting ready to, try something new or do something. I get that feeling too. But you know what? I do it scared. I do it while I'm fearful, while I'm shaking in my boots. I do it. And that's what gets you on the other side of that fear. That's what helps you to get over that hurdle. One scripture that I love that really helps identify fear for me is the scripture that says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." And so the Bible identifies fear as a spirit. So I was like, well, how do you fight something you can't see? And I realized that even though fear can grip our hearts and it can grip our thoughts, the way that we combat it is just that. We fight back. We fight back with the opposite spirit, with the opposite words. So while fear is telling you you don't have enough money to do that, like it was telling me, I can come back and say out loud, I have all the resources I need to fulfill my destiny. While fear is saying, oh, you don't have the skills to do that, you're just not cut out for it, I can come back and say out loud, I have the right people to help me to develop the skills I need to accomplish my goal. The evidence that I tried this and that and this and that and nothing like that ever worked, that other thing I was feeding my fear with, I could come back and say, you know what? I'm not going to give up until I win. That's where that determination comes in. So, it's natural. Just think of if someone were to just kind of grip you by the arm or try to restrain you, you're going to do everything in your power to get free because you don't want to feel restrained. So in the same way, you're going to fight back with all that's in you to not have that feeling. And we have to do the same thing with fear. We do that with our words. Whenever fear tries to grip us, or you can't do that. Oh, you're shy. You've always been timid. Nobody expects you to do that. You've got to rise up and come back with the opposite message so that you are combating fear and you're not letting it restrain you. So it truly is a a spiritual battle, if you will. So we have to fight back. I was in what's called a Toastmasters class a couple of months ago, and I just came as a visitor. And Toastmasters, for those of you who may not know, is kind of like a public speaking type class where they teach you how to, speak in front of a number of people. So I was like, well, I'm going to kind of check this out. And I went there, and one segment of the meeting, one of the ladies came up and she just kind of gave a topic, and then she would choose somebody to come up and speak on the topic like impromptu for like 2 minutes. And so, I'm sitting back and I know she's not going to call on me because I'm new. I'm just visiting. So, I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to the people and all of that. And then the last topic she came up with, she said the topic and she said, instead of me volunteering someone, I would like for someone to volunteer. And then I heard this little voice in my heart say, raise your hand, Anita. And so I raised my hand and she said, oh, our guest, our first time guest wants to come down. And so I stood up, and while I was going down those steps to get in front of those people, I'm thinking, what am I going to say? I have no clue what I'm going to say when I get down there. And so, I was nervous. I wasn't fearful, but, it was just this kind of nervousness that, what am I going to do? So I got down there and I just kind of like said my spiel, but I'm telling you, the more I talked, the more confident I got. I didn't know these people, didn't know them, never seen them in my life. But as I began to speak, I did it scared. I did it nervous. And the more I talked, as the seconds went by, I got more confident and more confident. So I say that to say, even though I wasn't fearful, I really could have sat there and said, and just said, I'm not going to get up. Nobody's expecting me to get up. I'm just an observer. So I could have just given that nervousness a nice big spoonful of an excuse. Say, nope, we're just going to sit right here and let somebody else take that one. So I want to encourage you to combat fear because it is defeatable. You can conquer it. In fact, fear is more fearful of you than you are of it. You have enough talents and gifts and abilities and knowledge and wisdom inside you to forever keep fear far away from you. But to conquer it, you have to approach it with the opposite words. To be victorious while it's spewing out words to you like you can't do that, all those kinds of things, you literally say out loud the opposite of what it's saying to you because you have that ability and that power to do that. And so I'm going to leave you with this final quote, and I leave it as the last one because I love it the most. And it's by Marianne Williamson. And she said, you must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be. You must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be. And if you had any questions whatsoever or any comments about what was said tonight, if you would go to the person who invited you on the call so that you all can maybe discuss it further and get an even deeper understanding, or, maybe it was something that you really liked that you want to share with that person, let them know. Just call the person who invited you on the call tonight and be empowered even more by that lady. So I'm going to go ahead and close it up. We are at 8. I have 8:24, and we will be right back here Monday night of next week, 8 o'clock to 8:30. I promise I will not keep you longer than that because we just want this to be a time of encouragement for all of you. So thank you again for being on the call, and good night.